Welcome back to Old School Sports and our OOTP 23 playthrough of your 2031 World Champion Kansas City Royals. Just finished an excellent season for the Royals, had the best record in baseball during the regular season, and we just completed a 4-3 victory over the defending champion San Diego Padres in the World Series to clinch the second championship of our 10 years as GM of the Royals. We've been GM for 10 years at this point, just completed our sixth playoff appearance, and just won our second championship. So it has been a pretty successful playthrough so far. In this episode, we're going to kind of recap the top performers from this championship season, start thinking about salary arbitration, and possibly get through award season. We'll see how long the episode goes. Thinking about the Royals, was a championship year, as I mentioned, but the team's going to look very different next year. The good news is that we've got over $50 million for extensions, and given that we're going to have a season profit of over $30 million and a total balance of $37 million, I'm pretty hopeful that our budget will be increased next year, which will open up even more money for extensions. So those are the positive things. The negative things, we're going to have a lot of holes to fill next year, potentially. Our starting catcher, MJ Melendez, is a free agent. Three of our starting pitchers, Aaron Nola, Ricky Venasco, and Ben Borgman, are going to be free agents and are all looking for pretty big money. Our closer, Josh Hader, is going to be a free agent. And then a big bat right fielder, Jasmine Diaz, who we signed to a one-year contract, is also going to be a free agent. So good news that we've won it all. They can't take that away from us. But the work towards getting back to the playoffs next season and trying to position this team well for the long term begins today. Oh, and one other gap that I forgot to mention, our starting second baseman, Corey Seeger, who we traded for at the trade deadline, also a free agent. So definitely a lot of work to do this coming off season. But before we think about the season to come, a quick review of the season that was. Excellent season for the Royals. We were second in the American League in runs scored, second in the American League in runs allowed. That obviously added up to a very good 102-60 record. We were a pretty dominant team throughout the season. Had a losing record in June, somewhat surprisingly, and then only a little over 500 in August. But every other month, our winning percentage was well over 600. Playoffs were a battle. We went to the limit in each series, beat the Yankees in 5 games, beat the Mariners in 7 games, and then beat the Padres in 7 games. So having the home field advantage for that final game in each series may have been the difference for us. Taking a look at our offensive players, no surprise, Alex Vasquez, the brilliant young player. Last year was Rookie of the Year, an All-Star, and a Silver Slugger this year, and the batting champion. Added another All-Star appearance this year and added an ALCS MVP this year. You can look at his batting profile, just a brilliant offensive player for this recently turned 25-year-old. Topped off his rookie season last year with even better year this year. Led the AL in hits, doubles, runs batted in for the second straight year, hit .323, and put up a 177 OPS plus, a 174 WRC plus, only a 6.6 WAR. He's not a very good defensive player, and he doesn't play very important defensive positions. Would certainly expect him to win another Silver Slugger. I think he should be in the mix for MVP voting, but I think the fact that his WAR is, a good 2 to 3 runs behind the top players in the league probably will cost him that bit of hardware, at least this season. Bobby Whitt Jr., longtime Royal, who last offseason we signed to a 5-year extension at big money. Had another good Bobby Whitt Jr. type season, a 131 OPS plus, 5.9 WAR for the third baseman. Led the league in steals. That's the third time in his career that he has led the AL in stolen bases. So nice year from Bobby Whitt Jr. Jasmine Diaz, who I mentioned, we picked up as a free agent signing after spring training. He was out on the market, and adding him to the team was a big addition. Paid him $9.5 million. He was a very important offensive player for us. Hit 312 with 112 runs scored, 37 doubles, 16 homers. Put up a 157 OPS plus, a 156 WRC plus, and a 5.4 WAR. Definitely would not have had the season that we had without Diaz. And then another new addition, Angelo Velasquez, number one draft pick for us just 3 seasons ago, made his major league debut at the end of last year and turned 23 towards the end of this season. I think he's got to be a very strong competitor for Rookie of the Year. He won the batting title with a 328 batting average, out hitting teammate Alex Vasquez, among others, for that award. Hit 45 doubles, stole 33 bases, although his stolen base proficiency is not particularly good, but still put up a 124 OPS plus, 122 WRC plus, and a 4.7 WAR. Also a very good defensive center fielder, leader in the clubhouse with a good personality. Made his first all-star team. Should be a big part of the Royals for many years to come. Those were the big 4 players for us. MJ Melendez, the free agent catcher. Typical MJ Melendez season, really. 231 batting average, 19 homers, 103 OPS plus. Great personality, good defensive catcher. We're going to have a big decision to make with him this offseason. He's looking for $14 million a year for 4 years, which is likely more than I'm going to be willing to pay him, given that we do have Angelo Bolden, the youngster, who hit 237 in 190 at-bats. Pretty similar defensively, not quite as good an arm. Another good personality in the clubhouse. He was our number 1 pick back in 2025. Has developed pretty well. Could certainly take over as our starting catcher if we decide to move on from Melendez. Junior Marin, one of our corner outfielders, had kind of a bounce-back season, hit 260 with 31 homers, 94 ribbies, put up a 116 OPS plus. I guess honestly, in terms of the OPS plus and the WRC plus, it's not really a bounce-back season. It's just kind of a typical Junior Marin year. He'll be 28 years old by the start of next season. He is an injury-prone player, but you can see very consistent over the course of his 4 seasons in the majors. Has hit 30, 27, 28, and 31 home runs with 78 to 94 runs batted in. He's fragile, so he definitely can't be counted on to be in the lineup every day, but going to be an important bat for us, especially if we have to move on from Jasmine Diaz, and I'm guessing we will have to. Yeah, he's looking for over $25.5 million a year. So while we appreciate the great season that he had for us this year, it's going to be hard to bring him back. Ricardo Cabrera, second baseman. Good glove, decent hitter, although he put up only a 78 OPS plus and a 73 WRC plus this year, batted just 245. Did lose his job towards the end of the year when we did pick up Corey Seeger for the stretch run, but you can see that Corey Seeger ended up only playing 14 games in the regular season for us, got hurt, but he did come back to contribute to the run for the World Series. Nikki Lopez was our longtime shortstop. We let him go last year and then brought him back at a discounted contract this year. Kind of similar player to Cabrera, 75 OPS plus, 77 WRC plus, but still a nice glove at shortstop for the soon-to-be 37-year-old. Sal Frelick is a player we're going to have some decisions to make on. He's been a good player for us over the years. Kind of had a down year this year with a 94 OPS plus, hit just 265, stole only 25 bases and played just 113 games. His injury proneness has deteriorated to wrecked from fragile. You can see he's had a nice career primarily with the Royals. He's led the league in steals twice for us, and he won a batting title 2027 when we won our first world title. But his WARs are trending down towards being a league average type of player. Has a tough time staying in the lineup, and we're going to owe him $9 million for each of the next 2 years before he gets into a team option, which we would likely be moving on from. So he may be a player that we need to move on from sooner rather than later this offseason. Jordan Groshans is a guy we traded away to pick up Corey Seeger. Jackson Chorio, a young third baseman, hit brilliantly for us in limited action, 382 batting average and 68 at-bats, and he hit 326 down in AAA. So his profile doesn't suggest that he should be that good a hitter at the major league level. Now, he does have some speed. He's a good base runner. He's pretty versatile defensively, certainly a player who could potentially play a bigger role for us down the line. Already talked about Corey Seager. Juan Palomares, another player who could potentially play a bigger role for us down the line. Great personality in the clubhouse. Got his first major league action this year. He was our starting first baseman against left-handers and then was a pinch hitter otherwise. Not a great defensive player, but he did hit 309 in 223 at-bats with 13 doubles in his first major league season. Positive player in terms of his OPS plus and his WRC plus. Obviously, he's never going to take over for Alex Vasquez, who plays first base against right-handers and then DH'd against left-handers, because Palomares is a better defensive player, but could play a key role for us down the line if we get into a position where Vasquez moves to a DH every day. Then Palomares theoretically could be a everyday first baseman for us. Already talked about Bolden, the young catcher. Fabricio Valera kind of was our fifth outfielder this year. Had close to 300 at-bats because of injuries. Hit 239 with 13 homers, 56 driven in. One last player to mention, Victor Rosa. Thought he was going to kind of become our utility infielder down the line. Doesn't have the best personality in the world, and when we've sent him back and forth to Omaha a few times towards the end of the season, the clubhouse kind of came to us and said, that guy is a kind of a big jerk, and we don't like having him around. So we may have to move on from Rosa this offseason and see what we can get from him in trade, just in terms of keeping some peace in the clubhouse. Dylan Dingler and Patrick Bailey were also up briefly as catchers when Melendez was out with injuries. And then a couple of youngsters, Nazir Muley, played well for us in the playoffs, hit just 235 and 68 at-bats at the major league level. And Borgie Franzen was a total disaster at the major league level, hitting .086, but a small sample size. He was 3 for 35. Pretty versatile defensive player. Looks like best case scenario is he's an average-ish type of offensive player. May have a role on the team going forward. We'll have to see what happens this offseason. Turning to the pitchers, Aaron Nola led our team. We signed him to a one-year contract, and he led us in WAR with 3.2. He is wrecked physically. We only signed him to a one-year deal when we needed someone to replace our longtime ace, Spencer Bauer. We knew it was going to be difficult keeping him healthy. We got 24 starts out of him. Now, we only got 101 and 2/3 innings in those starts, but they were incredibly high-quality innings. He allowed just 62 hits, struck out 119, put up a 2.21 ERA with a 171 batting average against, 192 ERA plus, 66 fit minuses, and as I mentioned, the 3.2 WAR. So, would have liked him to have pitched more and been healthier, but we ended up in the ALCS against Seattle, and we beat Seattle by 2 games in the regular season, which gave us home field advantage. So you can certainly make an argument with a 3.2 WAR that Aaron Nola was the difference between us playing games 6 and 7 of that series at home versus games 6 and 7 on the road, and we ended up winning. So we won a world championship. Definitely not going to second guess bringing on Nola for 1 year. He's looking, I believe, for either even bigger money next season. Yeah, $17 million for 1 year. given that he's wrecked physically and he's suffered a rotator cuff strain after starting Game 1 of the World Series. We'll certainly be moving on from him, but he did get his third All-Star appearance with us this year. Kind of the opposite of Aaron Nola is Caleb Loggerwell, who put up a 3.1 WAR, but is just Mr. Consistency out there every day. Pitched 33 games, all starts, went 12-9 with a 3.86 ERA, 110 ERA plus, 89 FIP minus. You look at what he's done over the course of his career, and he's just turned 29 years old in the middle of this season, but with Kansas City, 75-45 record over 6 seasons, with a 3.60 ERA, 116 ERA plus, 89 FIP minus, and a 18.8 WAR. So he's pretty consistently putting up 3+ WAR every year for us, 3.42 Sierra over the course of his Royals career. Only one All-Star appearance, but he just won his second championship with us in those 6 seasons. So he is one of the pitchers who will be back next year. We still have him signed, so looking forward to that. Another free agent like Aaron Nola is Ricky Venasco. Also fragile physically, went 14-2 for us this year with a 3.41 ERA and 31 starts. Really the best year of his career. And because of that, he's looking for a little bit of money, $13 million a year for 6 years. Would like to potentially think about bringing him back. I don't want to give him 6 years, and I don't want to give him that kind of money. But, Venasco for $13 million a year versus Nola for $17 million a year would certainly go with the younger and less injury-prone Venasco for less money. Speaking of a guy who's looking for big money, Josh Hader is a pitcher we picked up in a trade with the Cardinals last offseason. He was on the trade block for them, brought him on to become the closer for us. 2-5 record, but 46 saves, 2.31 ERA, and 108 strikeouts in 72 1/3 innings. So he did a fantastic job for us this year. The issue is that he's going to be 38 early next season, and he's looking for a 4-year deal, averaging over $15 million a year. So that is probably not a contract we're going to be willing to give him. Gordon Graceffo, another starter who is signed next year, 9-8 with a 4.65 ERA. Right now, he's our number 2 starter behind Caleb Loggerwell. As far as the guys that we have signed for next season, would obviously feel a lot better if Graceffo ends up slotting in as our 4th or 5th starter. Ben Borgman is a guy that we brought on board before the trade deadline. Was 4-4 with a 3.41 ERA for us during the regular season. But then we got to the postseason, and he was brilliant for us. Only 1 win in 5 starts, but put up a 2.01 ERA and a 118 batting average against in 22 1/3 innings pitched. So he came through in the clutch for us. The issue is he had a really good year for us, and he's now looking for over $21 million a year. He is younger than Venasco or Nola, but he's looking for more money than either of them. And although Nola is wrecked physically, Venasco and Borgman are both fragile physically. So going to be hard to give any of them big money in the offseason, but with Venasco looking for the least money, that may end up being the way that we go. Mackenzie Gore, longtime player for us who had a really nice year this year, put up a 2.1 WAR for us. Only started 2 games, but had a 2.12 ERA with 100 strikeouts over 72 1/3 innings pitched. He'll be back with us next year. Hopefully he can pitch just as well. Will Goebel led the American League in games pitched, put up a 10-4 record for us with 3 saves, 123 2/3 innings out of the bullpen, struck out 138 and put up a 3.93 ERA. He is a real valuable left-handed arm for us out of the bullpen, durable, just goes out there and does what we need from him every day, and he does it well. Bryce Hubbard He's a guy who's been up and down between Omaha and Kansas City each of the last 3 years. Really pitched well this year with a 2.76 ERA and 102 strikeouts in 84 and two-thirds innings. He should be back with us next year. Also, RJ Davovich, longtime reliever for us who's made 3 All-Star games, but he hasn't made it in 3 years now. Really good year, 2.31 ERA over 66 and a third innings pitched, good for a 184 ERA plus. Just wish we maybe could get a few more innings out of him, but still a very effective reliever while he's out there. Tyler Bosma was a guy who was in and out of the starting rotation for us, fifth starter from time to time. Ended up starting 10 games, 7-6 record with 5 saves, 3.81 ERA, and 101 strikeouts over 85 innings. If we move on from the likes of Nola, Venasco, and or Borgman, Tyler Bosma, along with Mackenzie Gore, are 2 of the guys who could be joining Loggerwell and Graceffo in the rotation eventually. Now we're getting into the guys that didn't have as big years for us. Easton Tumis was up and down between Kansas City and Omaha, put up a 3.90 ERA in the majors with 116 strikeouts in 87 and two-thirds innings, so he was certainly fine. Jack Wiesenberger, another right-hander, 4.04 ERA over 42 and a third innings. Zach Jacobs is another guy who was an occasional starter for us, started 17 games, put up an 8-6 record with 3 saves, but a 4.87 ERA over 129 and a third innings. Another guy who could potentially be a 4th or 5th starter for us next year. Would feel better about the team as we head into the season if he ends up kind of more as a swing man who is a long reliever and then a fill-in if we need a 6th or 7th starter due to injuries. Heisel Barrow made his major league debut for us, put up a 3.77 ERA and 45 and a third innings pitched, but he's going to turn 30 by next year. Probably not a big long-term member of the Royals. Bob Williams, in contrast, could be. Only pitched 25 and a third innings this year for the former third-round draft choice who made his major league debut. Put up a 3.91 ERA. Definitely needs to be better, but you look at his ratings and he's still working on his fastball, his curveball, and his changeup. So he does have a potential to get a little bit better down the line. He's going to turn 24 years old this offseason, so he is a player who could have a more prominent role next year, especially if we move on from 2 or 3 of the starters from this past year and kind of backfill the rotation with the Jacobs, Bosmas, Tumises, Gores of the world. That will certainly open up some more innings for Williams in the bullpen potentially. So those are the players who earlier today won the Royals the championship. Caleb Loggerwell, who we mentioned, had a brilliant game, and our pitching staff in general had a brilliant game, won 8-0 in the clincher over San Diego. So great season for the Royals is in the books, and now it's time to begin moving on to the offseason. I think we'll have a pretty good evaluation from ownership. The goal this season was only to achieve a winning record, so obviously winning it all is good on that front. Made a ton of money. They wanted us to reach the series by 2035, so we've met that goal. Haven't really totally upgraded at second base to their satisfaction, but we are actually a free agent after this season. I'm assuming they're going to give us an offer to come back and hopefully make even more money than we made this past season after another big year for the Kansas City Royals. And we are now at the start of the offseason. Get to enjoy our second World Series trophy with this team of Royals. Let's see what's going on as we get going into the offseason. Happy with our performance. Relatively happy that we upgraded at second base. They're very happy that we increased profits. Obviously very excited we won the World Series. They're delighted with our performance. Oh, so now we got to win the championship again. Still need to upgrade at second base and build a dynasty over the next 4 years. No pressure. Fan loyalty has increased to very good. That's a big, big boost for the Royals that hopefully will keep our stadium packed and let us charge even more for tickets and get into an even better financial situation. And a big boost to our budget up to $238 million should allow us to have a payroll of about $170 million. So that is as high as we've ever been, and a jump of $18 million from last season. So we are going to have a lot of money available this off season to spend, which is really good news because, as I talked about, we're going to have a lot of potential holes to fill. A few people retired. Good old Chris Bosio retired as our pitching coach. Les Norman retired as a hitting coach in the minors. Gave us a 4-year contract at $1.4 million a year, so a little bit of a raise for us. And all he wants us to do is repeat as World Series champions this year and then build a dynasty over those 4 seasons. So no pressure. Hitting coach Lori Bonilla left Omaha. Top prospects, Maxime De La Cruz down to being the second best prospect in all of baseball. He's still at our international complex. Off-season underway. Arbitration is about to begin. Before we get into our arbitration development players, our arbitration eligible players, let's take a look at player development. 5th-ranked minor league system in baseball right now. Mentioned that Maxime De La Cruz is the second best prospect. Also have Jorge Morales in our international complex. And then generally lower level players are our top prospects. The only one of our top 5 prospects is AA or above, and that's Rich Alvarado, who ended up suffering a broken bone in his elbow. Hit .275 in his first stint in AA this past season, although he did only get to play 55 games there because of the injury. He'll be turning 23 years old in the off season. So being the World Series champs can cut our draft budget down a little bit, although there is a chance that we'll be getting some draft picks back if we move on from some free agents, which is certainly going to be possible. Jasmine Diaz, Josh Hader, MJ Melendez, and Ricky Venasco are all eligible for qualifying offers. Going to have some tough decisions to make there. None of those players are going to be an $18.9 million a year player. So there's definitely, well, except for Diaz, so there's definitely a risk. Actually, Diaz, we probably should just offer him right now. Yeah, he's looking for $25.5 million over 9 years. There's no way that he's going to accept the qualifying offer. So we want to make sure that one's out there. Hader, definitely don't want to make a qualifying offer to him. We'll see what happens with Melendez and Venasco. I don't really want to be spending $19 million on either of them. That's for sure. And then a large list between Seeger, Nola, Borgman, and Bailey of free agents without compensation. And then we've obviously got a slew of minor league free agents we're going to have to figure out what to do with, but won't bore all of you with the boring details of me going through minor leaguer by minor leaguer, deciding who we're going to keep around next year and who we want to move on from. We are going to focus on this large list of arbitration eligible players and try to start figuring out what our team is going to look like in 2032. We've already talked about Easton Tumis a bit. He was back and forth between Omaha and KC this year. Was certainly more effective in Omaha than he was in Kansas City, not surprisingly. He does have the stamina to be a starter for us in a pinch. We picked him up in a trade with Colorado about a year and a half ago. He's going to be looking to... The team is going to offer about $4.4 million, which means he's probably looking for even more. He could end up being, a 4th or 5th starter for us next year if we end up moving on from Nola, Venasco, and Borgman, and we can't find anyone real interesting in free agency. So he's looking for 4.8. His arbitration number's about 4.4. Let's see if we can lock him up for 4.2 million for 1 year. He's willing to consider that, which is good. Before I get deeper in the salary arbitration for more guys, just want to kind of take a preview of who may be available in free agency. Juan Soto, only looking for about 40 million, and Danny DeAndre also looking for about 40 million. So some big-time players out there. Most importantly, let's look at the starting pitchers. That's where we are going to have some holes to fill, and you can see that we're definitely going to have some holes to fill because the top two starting pitchers that are out there are both on our team right now. Nola looking for 17, as we know. Borgman looking for over 23 million a year. Jorge Rodriguez, 29-year-old, his filthy stuff, but it's really just driven by a changeup, kind of average-ish movement, average-ish control, average fastball and curveball. It's all just that changeup that makes him potentially effective over the course of his career. 79 ERA plus and a 112 FIP minus. So he has definitely been a below average-ish pitcher over the course of his major league career, and he looks like he's the potentially third best starter out there, looking for similar money to Nola. Given that he's a lot younger and he's not wrecked physically. If I had to pay 17 million to one of these guys for next year, it would probably be Rodriguez. But then we get into a bunch of three-star kind of guys, including our buddy Ricky Venasco, who is out there. Some of these guys looking for less than, $10 million a year, but, Luis Castillo is one of them. He's 38 years old and fragile. Definitely not a ton of big-time starting pitchers available, so we're not going to keep Borgman, Nola, and Venasco, but we probably want to make sure that we have at least one of them back next year with the amount of money we have to spend. Looking at all relievers, no shock that there are some pretty good relievers available. Headlined by our closer, Josh Hader, Luke Murphy, a former Royal, JT Ginn, a former Royal. That's about it for the former Royals, but plenty of relievers out there, although some of them are also looking for very big money. Looking at the batters, as we mentioned, Juan Soto is going to kind of highlight the class. Danny DeAndre, shortstop. Nice glove, and more than average hitter. He has put up some incredible seasons. 7.1 WAR, which led the AL last year. 8.5 WAR this year, which didn't lead the AL. No work ethic and has no hustle, but 27-year-old is hitting free agency at the right time. Put up a 132 OPS plus, 131 WRC plus over the course of his career, and has averaged a 7 WAR over each 162 games. Granted, he's 27 years old and he's fragile as far as his injury proneness. And he's also looking for close to $47 million a year. So, most of the big free agents are kind of in their mid-30s. So I think, we're probably going to try to spend some money on our arbitration-eligible players and probably going to spend a little money trying to bring back some of the guys that are on the team right now. And then certainly as the off-season moves on, maybe there's some trades that we can make to kind of bolster the roster that way. But outside of Juan Soto and Danny DeAndre, a lot of older guys are kind of some of the better players if you're just kind of doing the quick, simple star ratings. Soto's bat would obviously be nice, but he's only 33 years old and he's wrecked physically already, although he has played 148 in 156 games the past 2 seasons. I'm assuming that's probably because Washington is DHing him. No, he actually played 151 games in right field this past year. So some interesting players available in free agency, but most of them have some flaws, either in terms of their injury proneness, their age, or, just their level of production at this point in their career. So going to have another batch of tough decisions to make this offseason, just like it seems like we have every offseason. Tyler Bosma, we already talked about, just turned 32 years old during the World Series. He's been a starter for us, kind of a fourth or fifth starter at times, was more of a long reliever and occasional starter this past year. I don't love him. His arbitration number is only $2.6 million, though, and given that we're going to be potentially light on starting pitchers, definitely going to offer him arbitration. Let's see if we can get him for a little less at $2.4 million for next year. He will think about it, so that's good. Bryan is a guy who was a pretty important left-handed reliever for us for a couple years, suffered a real major injury, and his ratings just are not what they once were. He did okay in 4 games back at Omaha, put up a 1.93 ERA in those 4 games, but he did allow 7 hits while walking 4. People hit .350 against him. I just think this is a guy, unfortunately, who's had a lot of injuries over the course of his career, and he's also going to be 33 years old by April of next season. Since he was in the minors, our default is to not make an offer to him. I don't think I'm going to even offer him the minimum. May just try to trade him away over the next couple of weeks and let someone else figure out what to do with him. Will Goebel, definitely a guy we'd like to have back. You can see now a 2-time All-Star. Actually, this is the sign here. He was an All-Star in 2027 and an All-Star in 2031. And those are also the 2 years that the Royals have won the World Series. So if Will Goebel makes an All-Star team, the Kansas City Royals are going to be world champions. That's just the rules. Looks like our number for him is about $2.86 million. I'm guessing he's going to probably be asking for maybe 3.2, 3.3. Yep, 3.32. Let's see if we can get him for a little less, $2.65 million for next year. He's willing to think about that. That is good. Zach Jacobs, another guy who could end up being a 4th or 5th starter for us next year if we don't add a lot of people. Anyone who's watched knows that I like to have a lot of guys who can potentially start for us in a pinch, and certainly Tumis, Bosma, and now Jacobs fit that role. Goebel actually could too. He hasn't started as much for us as the likes of Bosma and Jacobs, but certainly could. So I like bringing on all these guys who could end up being 4th or 5th starters for us, and it'll probably be even more effective if they're working out of the bullpen. So Jacobs, would love to bring him back, looking for 2.1. Let's see if we can get him for 1.7 next year. And he's willing to think about that also. So quickly moving through these arbitration-eligible guys. Jack Wiesenberger is a tougher call for me. He's just turned 34 years old. He's got 2 nice pitches, really good stuff, excellent movement, acceptable control. Nichols just hasn't used him very much. And his number's starting to get up there. We're going to be offering him somewhere around the $2 million he made this year. What's he looking for? He wants $2.4 million. If he's willing to come back for exactly what he made this year at $2 million, we'll do it. He's looking for more than that. Obviously, if I offered him another $100,000, we'd get him. But I still want to think about that. I just don't know if we want to be paying that kind of money to him, especially when we've got guys like Bob Williams, who we mentioned before, coming out of AAA, who I think can do a pretty similar job to him for a third of the price at the major league minimum. Dylan Dingler was our catcher in Omaha this year, came up and did not do much, hitting a $136. He's a good defensive catcher, just can't hit enough to play in the majors. We may look to trade him. Certainly don't think I'm going to offer him what he's looking for in arbitration. Ricardo Cabrera definitely could have a big role for us next year. I think in a perfect world, he is a utility infielder, given that he can play second, third, and short competently or better, and is a below average-ish kind of hitter and also fragile. In a perfect world, I'd love him to be kind of our backup infielder. He may end up needing to start again. Definitely happy to bring him back. He's looking for 1.98. Let's see if we can sign him for 1.7. Getting close. Hopefully 1.75 will get the job done. He is willing to think about that. Excellent. Junior Marin, his number's starting to get high. But given that we are likely to be losing Jasmine Diaz, who was one of our corner outfielders, and we may be looking to trade away Sal Frelick, who was another one of our corner outfielders, I think we need to bring Junior Marin back. I don't want to make a long-term commitment to him. Obviously, he's just getting into his arbitration year, or this will be his second arbitration year this upcoming season. He may be looking for a longer-term deal. I don't see myself doing that. He's looking for $4.1 million. Let's see if we can sign him for $3.5 million. Not quite. How about 3.6? That should get the job done. It will. So we'll get him signed. And last but not least, Fabricio Valera. Made the major league minimum last year. Again, a corner outfielder. I don't want him to be a starter for us. If he's a fifth outfielder like he was this year, he can play a competent left and right. You could play him in center if you had to, but he's not that good there. Strikes out fairly often, doesn't walk much, but he makes decent contact and he hits some home runs. I mean, he was an all-star in Milwaukee the year before we traded for him. But you can see the 2 years with us, he's hit fewer homers than he hit in that one all-star season with Milwaukee. I think there is value in Valera as a potential fourth or fifth outfielder. 1.15-ish million isn't going to break the bank for us. So we will see if we can get him for a little less than that at 1.05 million for next season. 1.1, I am sure, will get the job done. Yep. All right, so we've taken care of arbitration offers for most of the players. Will Bryan, Jack Wiesenberger, and Dylan Dingler. Dingler and Bryan, I just don't see us offering. Wiesenberger, maybe. But those will be three guys as I start, thinking about trades in the coming weeks before we get to arbitration. If I don't think there's going to be a big market for any of those three players, but if there's a team that we're trying to work a deal out with and putting one or two of those guys in tips the deal in our favor, then certainly would think about including them in those deals and not having to go through the arbitration process with them next month. All right, we're starting to hear back on some of our arbitration-eligible players. Zach Jacobs signed, Tyler Bosma signed, Easton Tumis signed, Junior Marin signed, Will Goebel signed, which the fans were pleased with. Cabrera signed, Valera signed, and then you can see we've also got some offers out to some minor league hitting and pitching coaches. So we're gonna keep working on that. Looking at arbitration now, though. We've got everybody that we were interested in back, so that is positive. Going to have to figure out what to do with those players that we're less enthusiastic about. Fan interest with the fan loyalty bump, and then those signings we made is up to 100 now. You can see we basically sold out every game last year. We raised our price from $30 to $32 during the course of the season. May increase it even more than this, but gonna try to give it a pretty significant bump coming off the World Championship to $35 a game. Would be a pretty significant increase, 14.9%. but we just got that bump in fan loyalty. Fan interest is as high as it can possibly be, and we just won a World Series. If there's ever a time for the Royals to push the envelope on price, I think this is probably it. We may even go a little higher. I'm thinking about maybe just putting it up to 36, but we can give that some more thought in the coming days and weeks. We're about to, as I mentioned, finished with salary arbitration, and we're about to get into award season in the next couple of days. I think I'm going to try to figure out these couple minor league contracts that we haven't been able to pick out. Kimura likes the offer. Daiichi Suzuki, who is a really good-looking just coach in general. I mean, he can coach everything very well. We're offering him to be a minor league hitting coach, but would certainly like to get him into our system. So we'll see what he's looking for. Yini Quepio Rodriguez, another team that's made. He's gotten a good offer from another team, but he's also a really good-looking potential pitching coach, good at development, excellent with mechanics, outstanding with teaching pitching. Would certainly love to have him as part of our farm system. And then Scott McGregor, another pitching coach candidate, also very good, excellent with development, good with mechanics, good with aging, outstanding with pitching. Always looking to have as much talent in the minors coaching our prospects as possible. So given especially that we now have this enhanced budget, want to be making offers to these guys to hopefully land as many of them as possible to be coaching, some of our rookie and low A ball kind of people where, they could be working with some of these prospects for a couple of years. And award season is starting tomorrow, so we will wait until our next episode to find out who won all the big awards in the American League and the National League this season. Also going to be spending some time thinking about what we want to do with the last 3 arbitration-eligible players, and then any other trades that we may want to make. Certainly front and center on the trade thoughts is what we want to do with Victor Rosa, since the rest of the guys on the team don't want to be around him. We'll look to be trading him away. Likely look to see if we can get anything from Bryan, Wiesenberger, and Dingler. And then the rubber's going to really meet the road as far as MJ Melendez, Ricky Venasco, and the rest of our free agents. Are we going to make offers to anybody? Haven't even looked at what Corey Seeger's looking for. I'm assuming that's going to be way more than we're willing to pay. Yeah, he's a 37-year-old player looking for $21.4 million a year for 4 years. Not the type of contract we're about to give out. So have a lot of decisions to make even before formal free agency begins, with the 8 major league free agents that we have, a boatload of minor league free agents, and 3 still arbitration eligible players. So in the next episode, we're going to get into the hard work of really trying to revamp the roster for 2032 and hopefully make an attempt to defend our title. Until then, thank you so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.